All right, so I'm just going to sit here and talk for a moment because it's a good time to sit, my friends. Interesting times, as the old proverb goes. Um, oh yes, okay, good. So I'm sorry you weren't able. I'm sorry you were not able to get into the Zoom, Nicole. It won't let me on. So, but thank you for joining me because this, wow. Um, I actually just got home. I went to my West Virginia property this weekend just to check on things down there, and so I was checking the Twitter this morning, and found out that it had been even more intense night with more protests going on all over the place. Um, the one thing that occurs to me though is that whatever your practice is, I'm not here to try and make anyone a Buddhist. I'm going to talk from a kind of a Buddhist angle, but I'm not even really officially a Buddhist. I never took refuge, so I'm not here to convert you. But whatever your spiritual path is I sit down and think about the history of all of these different paths. Most of them did not come out of placid times in human history. Okay, so if you're Christian, Jesus was in an occupied territory. They've been conquered by the Romans. Who were going around doing mass executions. That's why he ended up nailed to a cross. Because he got the Romans upset with him, even if it was because he got the Jewish leadership upset with him. But it was not really a quiet time in history when Jesus was around. Muhammad, was uniting the tribes together in a very fractured time. There's a lot of war and stuff going on. That's why Islam has more to say about war than some other paths, because that was the time in which the Prophet Muhammad found himself. Things were not quiet and peaceful in the Buddha's day either. They had a caste of untouchables. This was a big thing that the Buddha did. Was he let every caste into his group? The Brahmins were not real happy about that, but there are chapters, sutras, where the Buddha is talking with his dad, the king, with other kings about making war. So we've been through this before. We, maybe not personally, but we, as in the spiritual traditions of the world, have been through this before. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that makes it a little bit easier. It's not the end. It's going to be difficult times. I don't have a ready answer. I know that if you follow me on Facebook, you know that I have been a critic of police institutions for a long time, but also as a martial artist, I train with some guys who are police, and it usually is the guys who want to have the most options available to them, the men and women who want to have more options on that continuum of force, so they don't have to reach for the pepper spray, they don't have to shoot people. There's a guy who I train with at our Howard County dojo who's a Howard County police officer. And I was really heartened to see the Howard County Police page on Facebook posted a really good note about how they were shocked and horrified at the killing in Minneapolis. I thought that was really something that we need to hear more from police. But the guy I've trained with, we've sparred, and in fact sometimes he talks about how when I'm showing some really brutal moves, like, oh my God, they would never let us do anything like that in training. The training that they're getting. I think of his beautiful little daughter. I don't want him to get shot by an angry protester. He's a good man. But I don't want his co-workers wading in with billy clubs and tear gas on peaceful protesters either. So I do not know. I've been quoting a couple of times recently a Pete Seeger song, Letter to Eve, where he says, if you're going to have great love, you're going to have great anger. When I see innocent folks shot down, should I just shake my head and frown? But then in the next verse he says, if you want to hit the target square, you better not have blind anger. Else it'll just be one more time the correction creates another crime. I'm going to swing this mic over here because I feel like I'm talking a little bit more lowly than I usually do. Yeah, I did want to read. I will give you some other men's wisdom, other people's wisdom, though in this case it is a man, Jack Kerouac. And then we're going to sit. So I felt like I should say a little bit appropriate to the times, but really just sitting is probably best. But yeah, some words too. This is sort of a prayer that Kerouac. Now the Dharma Bums, very important book in the history of Western Buddhism. Came out in the 1950s, in the mid 50s. I think he wrote it in 55 or around there. It's a fictionalized account of his time with Gary Snyder, who is Jaffe Ryder, in the book. And in this one passage, he's talking about, Snyder, of course, was getting into Zen at this time. Kerouac was more into a Mahayana sort of Buddhism, which was more focused on compassion. And a couple of times he's like, I don't know, these Zen people are kind of cruel, but that's an arguable point for another time. But he wants to tell Jaffe Ryder this prayer that he wrote. I sit down and say, and I run all my friends and relatives and enemies one by one in this, without entertaining any angers or gratitudes or anything. And I say, like, Jaffe Ryder, equally empty, equally to be loved, equally a coming Buddha. Then I run on, say to David O. Selznick, equally empty, equally to be loved, equally a coming Buddha. Though I don't use names like David O. Selznick, just people I know, because when I say the words equally a coming Buddha, I want to be thinking of their eyes. Like, you take Morley, his blue eyes behind those glasses. When you think equally a coming Buddha, you think of those eyes, and you really do suddenly see the true secret serenity and the truth of his coming Buddhahood. Then you think of your enemy's eyes. Ooh, that's hard, isn't it? That's hard. We can sit here all day and think of our friends and relations and loved ones and yeah, equally empty, equally to be loved, equally a coming Buddha. Oh, it's lovely. Oh, I'm gonna go, hug these people in my brain. And then you think of that police officer kneeling on a man's neck in Minneapolis. And can you think of him and say, equally empty, equally to be loved, equally a coming Buddha? Oh, that's a heavy one, my friends. That's a workout for the heart. I'm not saying I can do it. I'm not saying I can do it, but I recognize the necessity. So, all right. So we're going to talk about. I've seen it recounted as if it were a true story with the actual names. I can't remember the names involved. I'm not sure if it was Hakuin or not. So I'm not going to try to remember that. I'm just going to tell you this story in its generic form and probably embellish it a little bit. But the story is that there was a samurai who came to see the Zen master. And the samurai asked, so master, tell me, I've always wondered, is there really a heaven and a hell? Is this true? Is there really a heaven and a hell? And the master looked at the samurai and said, what a dumb question that is. What an idiot you have to be to even ask. And look at you. Who let you go out like that? You look like an utter buffoon. Well, the samurai got absolutely outraged and he started to draw his sword. And the Zen master looked at him and said, these are the gates of hell. And the samurai realized what was up. And he stopped. He sheathed the sword. And he bowed. And the Zen master said, and these are the gates of heaven. So it maybe feels like we're in a hell realm at the moment, my friends, but best piece of advice I ever heard is if you're walking through hell, keep walking. So maybe, possibly, perhaps we think about that lesson. Maybe we can find the gates of heaven together. So thank you. And the plan is to keep doing this every Sunday, though one of these Sundays, one day I won't be here on a Sunday. I'll be somewhere. Maybe I'll pre-record something or something. But so keep watching the Facebook feed. If you want to be updated, private message me. I should get an email list together about what I'm doing here in the time of COVID. So if you want to be updated about stuff, send me a private message with your email address, and I will put you on some type of email list. That's the thing I need to get going here. And maybe next time we'll have the Zoom going for some two-way discussion. But thank you. Thank you, Nicole. I'm going to go and try and get some dinner, and then maybe I can see you for Zelda's this evening. And anybody else out there, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. Let's all bow together. Let's all bow together. So if you please, your hands together in a gassho posture, if you can, and just bow. That would be lovely. All right. Thank you.